One of my dreams for the future is to buy a cottage in Germany, the UK, or New England with a large garden full of vegetables and flowers, buy a bunch of pets for my household and old-fashioned dresses, and welcome all kinds of animals to my garden. Why is that? Because as a wee chick, I was obsessed with Peter Rabbit and Beatrix Potter's other characters. If you've been living in a hole all your life and don't know who Beatrix Potter is, she was an English author who lived in the English Lake District in a cottage with a garden and several pets and animals quite like my own dream nest. This lifestyle prompted her to write many books in the English countryside starring animals. Her most famous character was of course Peter Rabbit, who was chased throughout Mr. McGregor's garden because he didn't have a getaway driver for his vegetable heist. Well, not many people know he was based on her own pet rabbit of a similar name. But there were other characters that she wrote enticing stories about. There was his timid younger cousin, Benjamin Bunny, starred alongside him in 3 later stories. There was Squirrel Nutkin, who lost his tail to Old Brown the Owl after annoying him endlessly with his extremely clever riddles. Like seriously, his riddle about bees described them as bonny swine. If that isn't poetic, I don't know what is. There was the Tailor of Gloucester, who needed to make a coat for the mayor's wedding on Christmas Day, but falls ill and can't finish the coat in time. But by a Christmas miracle, the coat is finished on Christmas morning. Oh my God! It's Santa Claus! No, it's just a bunch of little mice. Beatrix Potter had 2 pet mice, Tom Thumb and Hunca Munca, that became the 2 bad mice in her books, wreaking anarchy and destruction on a doll's house belonging to Potter's publisher's niece. There was also Johnny Town Mouse and Timmy Willie, who were modeled off of Aesop's Country Mouse and Town Mouse. Mrs. Tiggywinkle is a probably magical washerwoman hedgehog, finds the lost clothes of children and animals and makes them good as new. Tom Kitten loses his nice clothes to some ducks. Mrs. Tittlemouse, who rescued Peter Rabbit's nieces and nephews in a Peter Rabbit story, has her house overrun by insects and a toad with the strangely formal name of Mr. Jackson, which is what some kids would name their pet toads, and she has to fight all of them with her OCD. Timmy Tiptoes is a American gray squirrel who gets imprisoned in his nut hole and is rescued by a lazy chipmunk. Tom Kitten's aunt appears in her own spin-off book, The Pie in the Patty Pan, inviting her dog friend Duchess to tea and getting her sick with her mouse pie because dogs can't eat mice for some reason. Well, my dog loves chasing and catching and eating rodents of all shapes and sizes. Ginger and Pickles teaches kids about capitalism through the bankruptcy of their store due to them giving out unlimited credit that just leads to their customers not paying and not getting anything back from their trades. That is not how capitalism works. Do you hear me? I know you have animal brains, but you still wear human clothes and walk on 2 legs and speak English. Maybe you can just use human logic for a chance. Stupidest business move ever. And Little Pig Robinson goes to a lovely English seaside town based on many places Miss Potter went on vacation as a kid, gets into a ship, becomes a sailor, and is rescued from being cooked by the ship's cat, sails him off to the land of the bong trees. And they might be that kind of bong, but not really. He becomes the pig and the owl and the pussycat. That's some serious nursery rhyme lore right there. I wonder if this is canon in Shrek. But Beatrix Potter was not afraid to make her stories dark. Since this was the early 20th century, children's books were a lot darker than they were now. In Peter Rabbit, Peter's father gets killed and eaten by the gardener, Mr. McGregor. Mr. Jeremy Fisher is a very unlucky frog fisherman who almost dies at the jaws of a trout. I find that slightly offensive, since I am from a state that has trout as the state fish. Jemima Puddle Duck, who just happens to be the one that stole Tom Kitten's clothes, gets tricked by a fox into being his friend so that he can eat her. That doesn't represent sexual predators, I don't know what is. And the fox returns in a later book to kidnap Peter Rabbit's nieces and nephews again. There's even a book where a pig named Pickle Bland who has to escape an ugly old man that wants to cook him. Great Escape style. Speaking of cooking animals, a rat named Samuel Whiskers, which is also an incredibly formal name a kid would name their rat, wants to cook Tom Kitten and a Kitten Dumpling in another book. Now, how do the books impact me? So, I usually try and find out the origins of stuff I read or watch, because nothing is original. It's just a hard truth. All art is based off of the real world. So I traced back the roots and found that they were inspired by certain animals. And that made me obsessed over animals, and the gardens and landscapes in the books are inspired by her own garden, so that made me obsessed with gardening. And that officially started my gardening phase. Unfortunately, I moved to a place that can't have a garden, so I hope that when I move out, there will be a place in my territory where I can have a garden, even if it's a small window box in a city apartment. It also makes me obsessed with creating many characters for an even bigger world and giving them each their own captivating story, like an author should do if they have way too many characters to develop. As for the recent movies, no, I'll pass. They capture the vibe I like, but a little more modernized for me. But they fail to capture the nostalgic and calmer spirit of the original books. Peter Rabbit and his friends can just meditate for once, but they never do that in the movie. I never saw them meditating in the movie. So, in conclusion, Beatrix Potter made me obsess over gardening, cottagecore furries, and creating a huge world with multiple characters with interesting stories, because nothing is original in this world. Thanks for flying in, but now I gotta fly out. Bye!